This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Gorillaz is one of the biggest... You know what? No. This was a mistake. I'm sorry. Gorillaz is one of the biggest bands out there, with a bunch of hit songs and many visually captivating music videos. But underneath the chorus and instrumental riffs, for a certain member of the band, there lies pain and a deep desire to not only be accepted, but also loved. This is the story of Murdoc Niccals. Now, if you're not familiar with the band, they're the product of singer Damon Albarn and artist Jamie Hewlett. The band is animated and have been around for quite a while. As such, there's over 20 years of lore that the casual listener might not realize just by enjoying their songs. Aside from the music videos, there's interviews, song commentary, podcast snippets, books, and even little animated segments that give us a peek at what goes on behind the scenes. So, with all of this spanning over 2 decades now, it makes sense that certain aspects of the lore are not well maintained, to say the least. It's hard to tell sometimes what events really happened to them and which are made up, as the band has talked about the process of filming music videos. There's also lots of contradictions, many things that were walked back, retconned, or altered slightly. For example, the Do You Thing music video depicting the band living in a townhouse following the battle at Plastic Beach. This was back in 2012. After a stressful tour and creative differences, the masterminds behind the band went their separate ways and reunited in 2016 for a new album. Upon the band's return, the story was changed so that instead of them living together after the Plastic Beach era, they were actually split up after the battle, far, far away from each other. And also the fact that Murdoc himself is an unreliable narrator due to his tendency to want to say the most outrageous things while maintaining his rockstar image. I've tried my best to examine the whole lore, and what I'll be talking about is what makes the most sense to me in the grand scheme of things. But before we get to that, let me tell you one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me and how that relates to the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark. A couple years ago, I woke up to find that my bank account was overdrawn. Somehow, someone was able to get in there and take everything from me. Years of work, gone. Fortunately, I was able to get it all back, but not everyone is so lucky. And it's not like data breaches are going away anytime soon. I wish that I had been using Surfshark way back then, because with their protection, I wouldn't have had to gone through this. VPNs encrypt your online data, so surfing the web is a lot safer. Whether at home or on public Wi-Fi, you deserve to browse the web without any worries of your information getting out there in the wrong hands. The Clean Web feature blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts so that you can have peace of mind. I'm a big fan of Alt ID. As the name implies, you get a new identity and new email that you could use for making accounts, and those emails get safely forwarded to your main one. I also love with how just one subscription, you can add multiple devices. So if you're unsecured, go to surfshark.com/Lias or use code LIAS to get 4 extra months free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Big thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video and to you for watching. Now, back to the video. June 6, 1966. Murdoc Alphonse Niccals was born in Stoke-on-Trent behind a pub. His mother would then drop him off at his father's place and disappear into the night. When his father, Sebastian Jacob Niccals, returned from drinking, he found Murdoc outside his doorstep with a crow on top of the stroller. This detail will be important for later. Although Sebastian did take responsibility and raised Murdoc, it can be argued that maybe he would have been better off without him. Sebastian was a drunkard and would routinely force Murdoc to perform at the local pub's talent show in order to win drinking money. Murdoc would get dressed up, put in costumes, sing, and dance, forced to entertain a venue full of other drunkards. It was absolutely humiliating. This was when his future was set. Here, he decided that he will be a musician, one that could do whatever he wanted, to be on stage and perform on his own free will. But his troubles didn't just end with his father, for he had an older half-brother, Hannibal Niccals, leader of a local skinhead gang and a huge fan of dub and punk music. So much so that he tried to get Murdoc into these genres, but Murdoc would always come back to his true love, heavy rock. Hannibal detested this and would get agitated whenever Murdoc played it, even breaking his nose on multiple occasions. there was no semblance of family here, as one time, Hannibal and his friends even went as far as bringing Murdoc to a music gig, his first ever one, just so that they could beat him unconscious before a single note of music was played. Considering this type of abuse at home, it should be no surprise that he'd be a troublemaker at school, always a distraction to others, but due to his way with words, he'd often be able to talk himself out of situations and get other kids to do what he wants. This was not enough though, as he still had to deal with bullying, both from students and teachers alike, even getting his nose broken by another student after he talked back to them. And then there is the very unfortunate fact that at school, he was taken advantage of by a lunch lady and lost his virginity to her at age 9. As he grew up, the only thing that Murdoc desired was being a rock star and indulging in everything that it entails. Money, fame, prestige, women, drugs, booze. He wanted it all, no matter the cost. This is why he became a Satanist and made a deal with the devil to become a famous rock star, and in exchange, he offered up his soul. A deal that he would weasel himself out of since the blood contract wasn't signed with his own blood. As part of this deal, Murdoc would receive Satan's bass guitar, El Diablo, and he'd change his middle name from Alphonse to Faust. Despite this arrangement, Murdoc was still not where he wanted to be. He worked job after job to be able to pay rent to his father, and he bounced between bands, trying to find his perfect group. And then, before he knew it, he was in his 30s and unemployed. What little money he did receive was in the form of government assistance, and that was just spent on underground child fighting rings. Murdoc was struggling, and so he had to resort to theft. On the 15th of August 1997, Murdoc and his gang were robbing multiple stores, and the final one was to be Uncle Norm's Organ Emporium. Here, Murdoc was especially keen on stealing instruments to start up yet another band. With his eyes set on his future, he drove straight through the store window and crashed right into an employee's head. That employee was Stuart Pott, who received an 8-ball fracture in his left eye and was immediately put in a coma. Murdoc was arrested, and as part of his sentencing, for whatever reason, he had to spend 10 hours a week looking after his comatose victim. Of course, it didn't take long for another incident, because when he was skidding his car, Murdoc neglected to restrain Stuart, accidentally launching him out of the window and straight onto a curb. An 8-ball fracture formed in his other eye, but at least it woke him up from his coma. It was here that Murdoc saw something in Stuart. The way he stood there, this guy, he was it. He had the look Murdoc needed. This was the band's lead singer, thus dubbing him 2D, a reference to the 2 dents in his head. By the way, if you're enjoying this, please consider subscribing. It helps out the channel a lot. Thanks. This was the start of Gorillaz, but they needed more. First, Murdoc bought Kong Studios to use as the band's headquarters. He then acquired a drummer, only the very best. Russell Hobbs, who had an in-depth knowledge of hip-hop, was kidnapped by Murdoc, but stuck around because the music they played for him was just that good. Now, all that was left was the guitarist. They actually already had one in Paula Cracker, 2D's then girlfriend, but she'd quickly end up getting fired after Russell caught her and Murdoc in the studio's bathroom stall, which resulted in Russell punching him in the nose 5 times. So Murdoc put out a listing for a guitarist, and a FedEx box soon arrived at their door. In it was their new child prodigy guitarist, Noodle. Gorillaz was now official, and with their musical talent put together, it didn't take long for them to get signed, resulting in a successful first album. Murdoc and the group did it. They're bona fide rock stars now. However, this success hasn't mellowed out Murdoc in the slightest. If anything, it's made his behavior more egregious. During this and the years that follow, he'd constantly take out his frustrations on 2D, physically and verbally abusing him, making sure that 2D is always beneath him. Murdoc also continued his knack of getting into trouble and dealing with sketchy people, one of them being Little Jimmy Manson, who tried to become a member of the band, but more on him later. Despite any hurdles, Murdoc's drive for creative outlets remained strong. This is why the band moved to Hollywood. They were supposed to produce a movie about themselves, but much like the pattern of the real-life version of this, that never came to be, as the director they got essentially conned them. Murdoc would then try his hand at other creative avenues, only to fail miserably. He wanted to star on a TV show, but he was too old for the part he wanted. He also tried to write a script along with the band, but that went nowhere. Unable to deal with his failures, Murdoc continued to use 2D as a punching bag. A defining instance being when, after a month of trying to write a screenplay together, Murdoc's patience was growing thin. 2D was constantly pitching already existing movies, and the final straw was when he pitched a movie called Elevator Pitch 5, where Colin Farrell plays Murdoc. This was Murdoc's limit, exploding over the ridiculousness of this situation. They're musicians, not scriptwriters. 2D would misunderstand his frustration and say that it doesn't have to be Colin Farrell. They could ask Jack Black. Murdoc lunged at 2D and with all his might started to strangle him. Russell warned Murdoc to let go, but in his fury, Murdoc couldn't hear him and continued to choke the life out of 2D. Even with Russell yelling at him and Noodle biting down on his hand, Murdoc remained in his violent trance, turning 2D's face to the same shade as his blue hair. Russell, left with no other option, hits Murdoc hard over his head, immediately causing him to collapse, freeing 2D from his grasp. As Murdoc gathered himself, he realized that this type of embarrassment could not stand. He is the one that brought them together. He is the one that made them famous, so how dare they show him such ingratitude? They would be nothing without him. In fact, they only pull him down. Murdoc specifically aims his furious gaze towards 2D, telling him that he's too stupid to be alive. That if it wasn't for his vocal talent, he would have strangled him years ago. Murdoc took one last look around the room and left. That was it. Gorillaz were over. The band members go their separate ways while Murdoc ends up in Mexico, where he visited a Tijuana brothel and committed the heinous act of paying with a faulty check. He was arrested and sentenced to 30 years in jail. During this time is when he was reunited with Cortez, the same raven that stood over him after he was born. It's not clear whether he is a guardian of sorts for Murdoc or if he just shows up to witness his misery. Either way, there is a connection here, and given that ravens can be symbolically inferred as bad omens, it makes sense why one would want to be around Murdoc. Staying with him for years on afterwards, and even being prominently displayed on the cover of the band's autobiography, Rise of the Ogre. But back to Murdoc's incarceration, it is here where he learned more about little Jimmy Manson, as Jimmy was a former inmate there and he loved to talk out loud. The inmates warned Murdoc that Jimmy, after trying out to be a guitarist for Gorillaz and being shut down, became vindictive. This rejection caused him to develop an obsessive infatuation with the group, specifically with Murdoc. He was a dangerous stalker that's already implanted himself around the music scene. But he was a problem for later. Right now, all that matters is getting out. 18 months into his sentence, along with the help of 2 other prisoners, Murdoc escaped. Upon reaching freedom, something compelled him, and he went straight back to the original Kong Studios. There, Noodle had already returned a while ago, and over the span of 6 months, not only cleared the area of zombies, but also started on the next album, Demon Days. It was this desire to continue creating music that brought the rest of the members back to Kong Studios as well. Now, this album was even more of a success than the first, launching the band into true stardom. They appeared on MTV Cribs, performed alongside Madonna, and won award after award after award. They were chart toppers, as this album hosted their #1 song of all time, Feel Good Inc. Gorillaz were on top of the world. They had everything they could ever want, but there was just one problem. Their stalker, little Jimmy Manson, who climbed the rungs of the music entertainment industry to the point that he managed the band's radio tour. On this tour, the band faced multiple assassination attempts that seemingly stopped after Murdoc complained to Jimmy. He was reminded of what his former cellmates told him about how dangerous this man truly was. This was especially because he was continuing to climb the corporate ladder and become an industry executive that was still hell-bent on taking down the band. So, Murdoc came up with a sneaky plan. he confronted Jimmy and told him that he wanted to make a brand new band with him. The only problem, of course, was Gorillaz. So he explained to him that Gorillaz will go out in a blaze of glory, a tragic incident that would mark the end for the band. While they filmed the El Mañana music video, the windmill will be shot down. During this chaos, Jimmy, who is hidden away on the island, would find some guns that Murdoc left around, and with the cover of helicopter gunfire, he would shoot Noodle. Jimmy would then take her parachute for himself, so him and Murdoc can start their new band, now that Gorillaz would be over for good. Of course, this was all a ruse. Jimmy was stowed away on the island, but when his moment came, he found no guns, and his only exit was locked. He was stuck there, crashing down alongside the island, and that's that. Problem solved. Unfortunately, something didn't go right here. Noodle was planned to take the parachute and escape. Stunned helicopters were supposed to pretend to shoot down the island, but as you can see here, these weren't the same helicopters that appeared at the end of the Feel Good Inc. music video. These choppers brought with them real bullets, real destruction. After the island sank down back to Earth, Noodle was nowhere to be found. Murdoc expected this, as he had made a deal with Noodle beforehand to give her an excuse to have some time for herself without letting anyone know. But she wasn't supposed to disappear like this. Her parachute was found, badly burnt. Noodle was gone, and no one knew what exactly happened to her, not even Murdoc. This wasn't revealed until much later, but those helicopters, they were sent by the Black Clouds, an underground criminal network of pirates and assassins. After Murdoc escaped from that Mexican jail, him and one of the inmates he escaped with dabbled in arms dealing to make a quick buck. However, Murdoc's arrogance caught up to him when he tried to scam his customers by selling them fake and faulty weapons. One of those customers turned out to be the Black Clouds, and they wanted revenge. They showed up to the music video looking for blood, all because of Murdoc. This was his fault. Noodle was missing because of him. In the years that followed, Murdoc would deal with his problems the usual Murdoc way of not dealing with them. Instead, he traveled the world in a debaucherous manner, getting drunk and high, resuming his shady dealings with dangerous people. Speaking of, the Black Cloud was still after him. So when his funds were running out, he burnt down Kong Studios for the insurance money and left the UK. Constantly being trailed and coming close to death, he went off to sea, and it was during these travels that he found it. A huge, massive garbage floating out in the middle of the ocean. At Point Nemo, to be specific, the furthest location from land. This was perfect. It became the new base of operations, and thus, Plastic Beach was born. Wanting to focus on music again, Murdoc started on this next album, but he also needed both protection against the Black Cloud and a guitarist. It's a good thing that during his search for Noodle at the El Mañana crash site, he retrieved a piece of her DNA, and it was from this that a robotic version of her was able to be constructed. Cyborg Noodle, part bodyguard and part Gorillaz member. Russell had apparently dropped off the grid and was unreachable, so he was replaced by a drum machine. But Murdoc needed 2D's vocals, so he tracked him down and drugged him. 2D would wake up in a briefcase on Plastic Beach, and just like that, he was back in the band. Held prisoner on the island so they could finish this new album. When it was finally complete, it was time to show it off to the world. But whenever they tried to play at shows, they'd always be stopped from going on stage by the Gorillaz tribute band, a group that Murdoc claims was formed by Lucifer as punishment for not handing over his soul when he made that deal long ago. The whole situation took a big toll on him. This was supposed to be their huge comeback, his claims to fame, his band disappearing before his eyes. On top of this, he was still being pursued. The Boogeyman, a being that is allegedly a physical manifestation of the bad in the world, especially the bad within Murdoc. His crimes, vices, sins, guilt, all of it. Hunting him down supposedly at the behest of Lucifer himself. But the Boogeyman also had his own grievances, as his dealings with Murdoc have fallen short in the past. Yet another entity hunting him down aside from the Black Clouds. As Murdoc and his collaborators make their way to Plastic Beach to finalize the album, Russell is revealed to have been swimming out at sea, compelled by his demons. As he traveled, he'd eat radioactive fish that made him become even bigger than he already was. He would eventually reach the wreckage of the M. Harriet, a cruise ship that was attacked by the Black Clouds. Why was it attacked? Well, they were simply trying to finish the job they failed to do at the El Mañana site. They had tracked down a presumed dead Noodle and were trying to take her out for good this time. She, however, was able to escape and was rescued by Russell. But they weren't out of the clear yet. The Black Clouds were still very much hot on their trail. Meanwhile, at Plastic Beach, the boogeyman had followed the group and summoned an army of soldiers from the Black Clouds to take out the band. They attacked the island, peppering it with bullets. Luckily, Russell and Noodle made it just in time to help. We find out what came of the group years down the line in the Book of series. Here, we find out that Murdoc managed to escape in a submarine with a heavily damaged cyborg Noodle. They were then captured by a nearby battleship and imprisoned. This eventually caught the attention of an Entertainment Internal Affairs representative that made a deal with Murdoc. He would be released, but only on the condition that he would make another Gorillaz album. He agreed. The group, who were once separated all around the world, years later once again found each other to make more music. Nothing much happens to Murdoc lore-wise in this phase though, but the most significant aspect comes from the strobe light music video. While Noodle and 2D are having the time of their life on the dance floor, Murdoc meets a stranger at the bar. He assumed this was just another fan, but after he got slid a card, Murdoc gave off a devilish grin. This man was apparently El Mierda, yet another shady individual that Murdoc would get into business with. Fast forward about 2 years. It turns out that El Mierda was a shadow demon and the head of an extremely dangerous organized crime ring, and his dealings with Murdoc have, unsurprisingly, gone south, resulting in him framing Murdoc for smuggling. This, once again, landed him back in jail. During this time, the band was ready to make a new album, but with Murdoc out of commission, they needed a replacement bass player, and they found one in Ace D. Copular, the leader of the Grand Green Gang from the Powerpuff Girls animated series. Yes, really. The two of them shared a lot of similarities, such as being green, so this replacement was a natural fit. As the band made music and toured, Murdoc tried his best to retain his relevancy by keeping in touch with the fan base and letting them talk to him. I actually partook in this myself, and we had the chance to even speak with Noodle as well. Through our talks, we learned that Murdoc eventually escaped prison and disappeared. Noodle, wanting to confront El Mierda and rescue Murdoc, went out all the way to South America, only to be disappointed. She was able to track down El Mierda, but he was not the criminal overlord she thought he would be. No, he was just an elderly spa owner who has never even heard of the band. As it turns out, the man that Murdoc met was named Juan, and was just using the El Mierda name as a cover. Additionally, it's revealed that Murdoc actually went to jail for parking fines, and he escaped on the same day he was supposed to be released. Inspired by stories he heard on the inside, he made up this whole El Mierda framing him for smuggling tale because he reveled in the attention he was getting through the Free Murdoc fan campaign. However, when he found out that Noodle went out to confront El Mierda, he booked it to South America right away. He was genuinely worried for his safety, as he didn't know that El Mierda wasn't a real threat. Murdoc attached himself to a yak and set out to bargain for Noodle's release, even writing a whole letter just in case he didn't survive the trip. If you've taken her prisoner, please let her go. I've known her since she was a kid. She's like a neglected daughter to me. I'm rotten to the core and deserve punishment. Not in a sexy way. But Noodle's a good soul, so take me instead. The yak that Murdoc rides eventually meets up with Noodle. He's ecstatic to see her alive and well, and if his tear ducts weren't frozen, he would have cried on the spot. Noodle, however, was very upset with him over this entire situation, but they were both safe nonetheless and enjoyed a lovely few days relaxing at the resort. And in the end, after the entire Free Murdoc campaign was complete, Murdoc himself admitted that he was able to break out of the worst prison imaginable, his own mind. He was a free man with a new lease on life, and we see just how much he's changed in the next phase. The group is now housed in a new studio for a new album. The music videos in the Song Machine era provide the most consistent lore we've seen out of any era. By this, I mean that each video essentially takes place after the other. In Désolé, Murdoc wakes up all smiley and walks around to find the studio completely empty, barely missing 2D as he heads out. We then see something we really haven't seen in Murdoc up until this point. The selfish, egotistical, detached front he puts on is nowhere to be found as he realizes that he's all alone here in the building. The rest of the band went out without him. 2D's riding a boat while Noodle and Russell are jamming out. This realization hits him hard. As he walks around and goes up the stairs, he pauses and weeps. This was supposed to be his band. In his absence for the last album, they've grown more independent. They don't need him as much as they once did, but he needs them. Their attention and validation. Without it, what is he really? He ponders this all as he curls up on the couch, holding himself, crying. The rest of the video focuses on the group's fun outings, and at the end, a defeated Murdoc goes back inside his box. Of course, when he's later asked about this in a Bytes video, he denies that he was crying. He hasn't done that in years, and it was just eye sweat. He doesn't care that they went on without him at all. Or so he claims. In the following music video, Ares, 2D takes Murdoc on a motorcycle ride to make up for leaving him behind. Noodle is very surprised that Murdoc would agree to this and, alongside Russell, follows them. As they ride, a smile grows on Murdoc's face, and at the end, he reveals a syringe filled with truth serum. The video ends here, but we see the conclusion in this picture. 2D injected. Russell attacking Murdoc with Noodle trying to hold him back. It's revealed in another Bytes video that their studio has these portals that can transport them around. Murdoc believes that 2D was holding back info on them, and so he tried to get the truth from him by injecting him, but he was knocked out shortly after and missed his chance. Murdoc wasn't done yet with this portal idea though. He can't stand that they would keep something from him, so he had to take the initiative. In Pac-Man, Murdoc works on creating his own portal while the rest of the group is too busy with their own activities to realize what he's doing. However, this goes nowhere for him. In Strange Times, as the group explores the moon, Murdoc cautiously enters a portal. Once inside, he falls in between time and space. Terrified, he flails his arms around helplessly until he arrives back to the studio, once again separated from his own band. Take this instance and compare it to the last time that he soared through the cosmos in Saturn's bars, where he seemed to be calm, cool, and collected, having the time of his life. But back to Song Machine. In The Pink Phantom, Murdoc is chasing a ghost that's been residing in the studio. The Pink Phantom, a being that feeds off of negative energy, such as the one that Murdoc has been exuding. There's also a potential double meaning here, as while the Phantom and the lyrics are mostly focused on the grief that comes with a broken love, it can be interpreted here as Murdoc trying to chase those treasured memories of the old Gorillaz, memories of when he was in charge, when they all looked up to him with respect for his musical prowess. Then, in Valley of the Pagans, the group drives through a portal and end up in LA. Although in the original version of this, they ended up in GTA 5's Los Santos before Rockstar copyright struck the video, forcing the creative team to adjust it and re-release it. But here, we find out that the Pink Phantom has been successfully captured. The band is probably on this trip to dispose of it somewhere. Remember what I said about this specter representing the old Gorillaz that Murdoc longed for? He's still obviously feeling a certain type of way because we see another unfamiliar side of him, fear and nervousness. It's written all over his face when they end up in this new place, and we especially see it when Noodle's driving accelerates. This is the same Murdoc Niccals who once reveled at being able to go at these reckless types of speeds, and now, here he is, clearly nervous about it all. This is also probably due to him not being the one behind the wheel, a metaphor for his role in the band. He no longer has control. There's a difference in 2D's reactions as well, since he seems excited about this joyride, while in the past, it was him who was the more nervous type. His confidence really shining through here compared to Murdoc's trepidation. As the video concludes, we see them go through another portal, this time bringing them back a decade earlier to Plastic Beach. In The Lost Chord, we open up with a binocular point of view. Literally rose-tinted glasses. The Pink Phantom is free. Someone gets up. It's the boogeyman? No, it's just Murdoc wearing the mask. He's taken aback as he realizes where he is. Murdoc is in disbelief, and almost as if he wants to make it all disappear, he shuts his eyes. The pain and regret here also being depicted on the poster for the song, where he clenches the mask donning him, the true villain of this story. Back to the island, the Pink Phantom escapes, and we see the rest of the band take in where they are. We see the results of the battle that happened here 10 years ago. Daly from the Donkomatic song met a terrible fate when he finally arrived. A pilot eternally resting in his cockpit. Noodle's broken mask, and Cyborg Noodle. Her body still in the same submarine that Murdoc escaped this very beach with. Murdoc can't help but cry at this sight. Suddenly, a sea beast emerges, and he is wrathful, for he represents the reckoning that must be faced. Remember that the island is formed from garbage. Pollution is a man-made problem, and this beast is here to pass judgment. As we see more of the island, the beast begins to wreck it. During the chaos, the submarine that held Cyborg Noodle sinks down to the ocean floor. The island and all the memories that happened here, good and bad, are destroyed. With his work done, the monster glares at the band, specifically at Murdoc, for this was his reckoning as well. His past has come back to punish him. The beast then returns to the sea. The band frantically climb to the top of the lighthouse. Murdoc is the one that made it to the top first, and it is he that, one by one, helps every member up. A portal forms nearby. Russell takes Noodle's hand and leaps through, followed by 2D, leaving Murdoc behind as it closes. His arms still reached out. This could have been the end for him. There was absolutely no way out of this. A fitting finale to a selfish narcissist standing solo upon the ruined sinking remains of his creation, which was originally erected as a monument to his desires, a craving that cared not for whatever casualties were incurred. It can very much be argued that after the years and years of abuse towards others, Murdoc deserved this fate. And it seemed like he understood this as his face lit up in horror as his world crashed before him. During this scene, the words being sung over and over again are, "I want to be free. Break those chains that bind me. I want to be free." Murdoc's chains here being the weight of his past, bringing him down with it as it sinks. However, there was at least one person who believed he was worth redemption. The portal opens with 2D reaching out his hand. Murdoc sticks out both arms, and 2D pulls him in, saving his life. Ever since this moment, Murdoc really has mellowed out. In Cracker Island, although he still has his faults that he has to overcome, he does try to find peace through meditation and even falls in love before that's unfortunately taken away from him. In the upcoming album, The Mountain, we continue to see a more chilled out version of Murdoc. I'm specifically excited about this album because, inspired by real life loss that Damon Albarn and Jamie Hewlett experienced since the last album, it is set to revolve around life, death, and what might come after. It's an interesting concept for an album, especially when you consider everything the band and Murdoc have gone through in the past 20 plus years. For most of my life now, I have been a huge Gorillaz fan. My first concert was their first US performance in 2017, after they returned from hiatus. Years later, I have all of their records, and they are consistently my most listened artist. I have changed so much, and so have they. It's only fitting. If there's any takeaway you should receive from watching this, from seeing Murdoc's story laid out like this, it's that happiness and purpose are hardly something that can be chased. Murdoc is not the same man he used to be. He has suffered and lost, forced to reckon with his own actions. He was so busy chasing what he thought he needed, what he thought he really wanted, that he continually hurt others and himself along the way. He wasn't able to properly appreciate what was really important until it was about to be taken away from him. I'm sure there's something in your life that you could take more care into appreciating right now. Something that is being overlooked during the hustle and bustle of everyday existence. Please, feel free to let me know what that is down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.